what's going on? How are y'all doing? Doing all right? Cool. Thank you. Uh-oh, that's like way too high. I'm not that tall. How are y'all doing? Everybody good? Having a good summer so far? Well, as Steve said, I don't think I'm going to get it down. I'm going to have to sit up really high. This is going to be a little awkward, but we'll be okay. Well, he says, my name's Alan, and I work here at Journey 2. I work with most of your parents. So sorry about that. I'm trying to work on them for your sake, trying to help you guys out. But I get to work with your parents. I get to work with adults. As Steve said, I've worked with students in the past. About 12 years I did student ministry, and so it's been a lot of fun. I like students. I like the opportunity to come talk to you guys every once in a while and do this. So we're in week 3 of a series called Basic Training. Steve started us off a few weeks ago. If you remember what he talked about, he started all the way back at the beginning in Genesis. And here's one of the things he says that we want to do for this summer, and it's this. We want the Old Testament, the first half of the Bible, to come alive to you, to see the importance of it. And hopefully what you will see is that while the Bible is one big grand story, the Old Testament is actually a lot of history. Like, these people really lived, right? They're not characters in a story. They're humans who live life, and now we're telling their story, but they're not characters. They're real people. So the history of the Old Testament, creation started. Then in week 2, Patrick talked to us last week about a guy named, anybody remember? Abraham. His name's Abram. Then he's called Abraham because God says, hey, look, dude, you're going to be the father of many nations. I was like, whoa, that's kind of hard to do when I don't have any kids of my own. And God takes care of all that. And we see all that happen because of the promise that God made to him. And we see what happens when Abraham gets impatient. In fact, history tells us that he really is the father of many nations, and there's lots of people across the world who date themselves back to Abraham. Christians, non-Christians, Muslims, all kinds of people all go back to Abraham. They talk about how big Abraham is. So we see that happen, and then tonight we're going to get into the next part of the story, and that's talking about Abraham's grandkids. So how many of you are grandchildren? Yeah, hopefully most of you. Good job. Figured that out. How many of y'all have grandkids? Have grandkids? Wow. Good job, guys. Way to pay attention. So we're going to do this tonight. We're going to have a little bit of fun. But as I always do with you guys, since you don't know me too much, I try to show a few pictures. But first, before the pictures show up, I just want to go ahead and tell you, if you want to check out now, if you don't want to pay attention the rest of the time, you just want to play on your phone, I'm going to give you the bottom line of basically what we're saying tonight, and you can check out, okay? So here's what it is. Your future is too important to risk for the immediate. I'll say it again. Your future is too important to risk for the immediate. All right, now you can check out. So here's my family. I'm going to show you my family. This is my wife. We went to the beach last week. It was awesome. Here's my wife and children right here. That's my wife, Amy. That's my little boy named Josiah. How many of you high schoolers started talking about a guy named Josiah tonight? There you go. If you high schoolers weren't here tonight for Josiah study or Josiah Road study, you can still sign up. Come next Wednesday, 6 o'clock. You can do the study. So he's named, that's our child's name is after the same king that you're studying and talking about in your access group before this time, but his name is Josiah because he was a great king and he did what was right when nobody else was doing it. Side story for Josiah. It's a weird name, right? Anybody else know somebody named Josiah? Okay, a few of you. Cool. Not many people have that name. We always get a lot of weird looks with that, but I could tell you a really funny story. I'll tell you afterwards if you ask me. And then that's our little girl. Her name is Karis. Here's some just fun pictures with them. She likes taking her picture with the camera, so she's excited and happy. There she is being more serious. Then Josiah gets a little playful and fun. And so that was at Hilton Head last week. It was a lot of fun. As you can tell if you go back to our family picture, 2 of us are very pale, and 2 of us get tan. And the 2 of us who are very pale are jealous of the 2 that can get very tan because we have to go inside and do a lot of sunscreen. But there you go. So that's my fam. We like to hang out. We like to have a lot of fun. And here's where we go. I have an older brother. Who in here is an older brother or older sibling? You're the oldest. I don't like you guys. Who in here is a middle child? I'm sorry. Your life is important, I promise. And then how many of you are the youngest sibling? Rock on, younger siblings, right? I'm the youngest sibling in my family. My wife, she's the youngest in her family. We both have older brothers. Man, that makes for a fun life, right? How many of you get along with your siblings? How many of you do not get along with your siblings? They're the easiest to kind of get going, right? Growing up with your siblings, you probably done some pretty dumb stuff, right? I'm thankful that at my age, which is old, we didn't have cell phones back in the day that could record everything we did, because that's not what I would want to happen. But I remember how we acted, me and my brother acted. We've actually matured a little bit over the years, so we don't pick on each other too bad. But now I get to watch it with my son and my little girl. He's 7.5, she's 2.5, or almost 3, and everything, he's trading. He trades with her all the time to his benefit. So whatever he wants to get, hey, let's trade, Garrett. This is awesome. We should trade. It's not awesome for her. It's only awesome for him because he's the older sibling. You guys are jerks, older siblings. Yeah, whatever. So as I can told you a minute ago, I'm old. I was born in 1978. So old, right? As my son asked me one time, he goes, we were riding in the car, and he goes, did you guys even have shoes back then? I was like, shoes? Come on, bud. It's not that long ago. But in 1978, one of these inventions came out that was really awesome, and it was called a remote control. So here's a remote control back from, no, not that one, the first one. See, she didn't even know the first one was a real remote control. The first picture, that's a remote control. There you go. Before this, a remote control was your child. So you would have been the remote control. If the TV needed to change, mom or dad would go, hey, go change the channel. You're lucky that you didn't have hundreds of channels like they do today. Probably only like 10 or 20 back then that, hey, kid, go change the channel, go change the channel. But that was a remote control. Now, this day and age, that's the newest, the next one's the newest remote control, right? How many of y'all have one of those, right? Can do all kinds of, mine looks similar to that, except I have a 10-month-old lab puppy, and he has taken a few of those buttons off of that remote control. But you can talk to that one, right? My 7-year-old just speaks into it, and it changes the TV for him because, yeah, it's ridiculous. But we got the remote controls, and it's actually changed life because life becomes easy and quick and fast, and you can get what you want when you want with the remote control and with life. Another invention that did that to us was the microwave. Y'all watched this commercial for a microwave from 1971. Here you go, watch this.
That's why new Whirlpool Time Master microwave ovens offer quick defrost, cycle reprogramming without starting over, and a keep warm setting without a temperature probe. Whirlpool Time Master microwave ovens. We're making your world a little easier. Whirlpool makes it easier.
Amazing, is it not? If you could hear what he was saying, they said, we're making your world easier. That's what all this stuff's done. It's made our world easier, right? Crazier, yeah, microwaves, remote controls, makes life a lot more convenient. We don't have to work for stuff. In fact, it's put our culture, which if you ever heard the word culture, let me help you out with the word culture, all right? Culture is the world you live in. If we lived in an aquarium, the culture is everything going on inside the aquarium with the fish, all the stuff, the air you breathe, the water you're in, that's a culture. You can switch cultures, but the culture we live in is very fast-paced, very much about convenience, and we don't really believe the future is important. In fact, when I was in high school, my high school math teacher told me, listen, you need to learn all this math stuff because you're not going to be able to walk around with a calculator your whole life. That was her response. Like, that's not true, is it not? How many of you got a calculator on one of these things, right? In the year 2007, life changed for everybody. Do you know what happened in 2007? The smartphone of all smartphones showed up, right? The iPhone showed up in 2007. How many of you were born in 2007? Some of y'all had to be born. Y'all were born in 2007? That was only like 10 years ago. All y'all are older than 10, correct? Okay, this is middle school and high. Yeah, there we go, middle schoolers, high schoolers. So you were born barely when the iPhone showed up, and it literally changed. You have every piece of information you want at your fingertips. Talk about convenience. And talk about not having to wait for anything. Now, how many of you are still hoping to get a cell phone or get a smartphone? Please, God, let me get one this year, this Christmas, this birthday. But this gives you so much information. It gives you so much stuff that we actually don't believe anymore that we should wait for anything. In fact, if I were to tell you tonight, I'm going to give you $50 tonight or $200 later, which would you take? No, you lie. You would not take $200 later. You want $50 now. I just said later. I didn't say when later. I just said later. Could be 2 years from now. Could be 10 years from now. Just said later. So $50 now or $200 later? Yeah, $50 now, right? Because do you believe the statement that good things come to those who wait? Be honest. How many of you believe that statement? Very few. Good people. We really don't believe that because everything about our culture tells us that what we want and what we get now is better than what can come in the future. It's all about being here, being right now. So what we understand, and again, the bottom line tonight is this: your future is too important to risk for the immediate. And if you remember, we're going to walk through some Old Testament stories through this whole summer. And so we're going to get to Abraham's grandkids tonight. And what's crazy, if you ever try to start reading the Bible, which you should, and reading all the Bible, if you've heard some of these stories in the past, you'll actually realize that a lot of the stories you learn about the Old Testament all happen in the book of Genesis, all 50 chapters of Genesis. And so it's like, whoa, what happens after Genesis? Because there was a lot of good stories in there. So we're going to spend a lot of time here up front in Genesis, and then maybe a little bit of Exodus, and then jump through most of the Old Testament for the rest of the summer. So here we are in Genesis chapter 25, if you have a Bible. We're talking about Abraham's grandkids. So Abraham and his wife have a child. His name is Isaac. Isaac gets married to a girl named Rebecca, and they have children, and that's who we're going to talk about tonight. All right? So it's a story. We're going to get to this, how the future is more important, and we want you to do this. And here's what happens. There's many times you guys make decisions as students that makes us as adults go, what in the world were they thinking? How many leaders have had that thought with some of your students this past year? What in the world were you thinking? Now, here's the truth. I work with adults now that I scratch my head even harder going, you're an adult. What in the world were you thinking? Because they make decisions that I would expect only a teenager to make. I give you some grace because you're teenagers. You just said they should. You just do sometimes make weird decisions, dumb decisions, and I kind of help that out. I want to help that out. But adults, I work with adults, it really throws me off. So we're going to look at two brothers tonight. They're actually twins. Any twins in the room? Yeah, I got one of them. Who's the oldest? By how many minutes? As they said together, 30 seconds. 30 whole seconds. Were you holding his foot as you came out? Do you know? Yes, you're the younger one, right? Were you holding his foot as you came out? Have you been told that? Because that's in the Bible, so I just was curious if we're going to read that in a minute, but I didn't know if grabbing his heel. All right, so Genesis chapter 25, twins in the room. We got to know of more twins. Talk about sibling. I mean, how often have you used I'm the oldest card for 30 seconds? A lot, yeah, a lot. 30 whole seconds, you're going to play that card with me. All right, so here we go. Genesis chapter 25, starting with verse 24. Here's what it says. It says, and when the time came to give birth, Rebekah discovered that she indeed was having twins. So here we are, twins. Yep, that'd freak me out if I found out that I was having twins. One of our staff workers just had twin boys. She now has 3 children under the age of 3. What are your ages? I have 3, 2, and under. Oh, Lord have mercy. Yeah, twins. So there's twins. That's what's happening, and that's what's going on. In verse 25, it says this. The first one was very red at birth and covered with thick hair like a fur coat. I'm telling y'all need to read the Bible. It's got some crazy, weird stuff in it that'll make you chuckle. So they named him Esau. Now, here's what's weird. I don't know about you guys. I don't know how and why you got your name. We named Josiah, our kid Josiah, because of the king in the Bible who did a lot of good things. We hope our son does a lot of good things. All right, we named our little girl Karis because it means grace, in the Greek language. So we thought it was cool, so we did it. In the Old Testament, they named children based on how they were born or what they looked like or what was going on around them. That's how they got their names. Very weird, but it's what they did. I'm glad they don't do that this day and age, right? That would be awkward if there were things going on. Like if your name was 30 seconds later, that'd be kind of weird, right? For the twin that's younger, that'd be terrible if that was his name. So that's how they give names. He was very red, covered in birth. Next verse says this. Then there was the other twin was born, and his hand was grasping Esau's heel. So they named him Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when the twins were born. I hope to God there are no children coming into my life at 60. That would be terrible. But the grasping of the heel becomes a big deal here. So we see this right here that the younger brother is already at a sibling rivalry moments into their birth, into their time on life on earth. So there's what's going on there. As they grew up, next verse in verse 27, Esau became a skillful hunter. He was an outdoorsman. Any skillful hunters or outdoorsmen in the room? Some of you believe you are, right? Anybody else? Nope, okay. And it says this, but Jacob had a quiet temperament, preferring to stay at home. Who has that quiet temperament, preferring to stay at home? Anybody in here not bored yet with the summer because you just stay at home and do nothing all day? You enjoy that? You like that? Yeah, a few of you? Cool. So as we see right here, these brothers were already like completely different dudes, right? One dude, I want to be outside. I want to go hunt and kill things. Rub some blood on my face, smell like the outdoors. Or as my friend says, you smell like recess. You know, recess, remember that old saying? You ever have some recess when you were a kid, just been outdoors all day? Then you got Jacob, who probably was a little more, let's be honest, pansy, just stayed at home, didn't want to get his hands dirty, right? That's probably more, I'd probably relate more to Jacob than Esau, unfortunately. Don't like to hunt, don't care to hunt, like that. But you can tell they're two different dudes with two different preferences already going in two different directions. So you can almost see the stuff going on. Here we go, let's keep reading in verse 28. Isaac loved Esau because he enjoyed eating the wild game Esau brought home. But Rebekah loved Jacob. So here parents are already showing favoritism. Any of your parents show favoritism? They love your sibling more than you? Those mean parents. Yeah, We always talk about it because my son looks and acts a little bit more like my wife, and my daughter looks and acts a little bit more like me. We always talk about all the time about how that's your child. That ain't my child. That's your child, the way they act whenever they're bad. But when they're doing stuff good, we always claim it. That's just how it works. All right? You're going to do that too when you become parents one day. So they're showing favoritism. So again, you see problems are starting. We're only 5 or 6 verses into the story, and problems have started going. Next verse says this. One day when Jacob was cooking some stew, and here's the big crux of the whole story. It's where we get to. Esau arrived home from the wilderness, exhausted and hungry. If this verse was being translated today, it would say that Esau arrived home from his wilderness hangry. How many of you have ever been hangry? You're so hungry, you're angry, right? If you're too simple to learn all this tonight, here's the simple message if you didn't get the bottom line earlier. You shouldn't make any important decisions while you're hangry, okay? Don't make any important, don't go to the store, don't do anything else. Eat first, then go shopping for food, because that will cut your bill down a lot if you don't go while you're hungry. But don't go while you're hangry. If you get hangry, I had a friend tell me the other night, she's only sweet when she eats sweets. That's just how her life works. She has to have the sweets and the sugar to make herself be sweet. But Esau was hungry, and this is where things go wrong. Just the simple stuff, they're going to do it. And as you know, as a sibling rivalry, you take advantage of your sibling's weakness, do you not? You know their weaknesses. You know what's going wrong, and you take control of it. I can take advantage of this moment. And so that's what's getting ready to happen in the next couple of verses. Here we go. Verse 3 says this. So Esau said to Jacob, I'm starved. Give me some of that red stew. Which again, here's a weird part of the verse. This is how Esau got his other name, Edom, which means red. Thanks, Bible, for that bit of information. Jacob said, all right, but trade me your rights as the firstborn son. That's a big deal right there. You're like, okay, trade me your rights as the firstborn son. So you get to flip twins. Now you're 30 seconds older, other twin boy. I don't know your names. I forget your names. I know your Wicklines, but that's about it. What's your names? James and Nathan. Who's older? That didn't help me. James, okay. Me, I don't know which one you use. James is older. James and Nathan. So Nathan gets to go, hey, I'm now James, or I get all the stuff that James gets. Now here's why the birthright's important. It didn't say birthright in this. It says rights as a firstborn son. In the Old Testament, in their culture of how life worked, here's where the things the firstborn son got. This is pretty cool, all right? The birthright was always given to the oldest son. It was a double portion of the family inheritance. So say there's only 2 kids, he would get 2/3 versus the other one only getting 1/3 instead of 50-50. So 66% to the firstborn, 33% to the second child. They always got twice as much as everybody else. Is that fair? Anybody think that's fair? Yeah, oldest kids are going, yeah, that sounds totally cool to me. That doesn't make it fair. It's not fair. I'm a youngest. I know this. All right? Here's the next part. As the birthright, you became judge of the family. So when the parents died off and you had to take care of stuff, guess who's in charge? The oldest. Birthright options. How many of the oldest feel cool with that? You good with that? You can be judge. There you go. All right? And then the last one was this. There was a sense of blessing or favor, like almost like a spiritual favor over the oldest, over the one with the birthright. So here we are. He finds his oldest brother hangry. And Jacob goes, look, I'll give you this bowl of stew. You got to give me your birthright. Sound fair? Sound smart? How many of you would have made that trade? All right, here's the truth. Raise your hands because all of you make trades similar to that in your life. You give up so much of your future for the immediate. Again, the future is too important for you to risk for the sake of the immediate. Let's keep reading the verses. Here's where he goes. He said, look, I'm dying of starvation. Some of you died of starvation this afternoon after you had lunch and you couldn't find anything else to eat in the house, right? Right after lunch. My 7-year-old is the worst about, I'm full at dinner, and then 60 seconds later, can I have a snack? I'm like, no. I'm dying of starvation, said Esau. What good is my birthright to me now? So he's basically saying, in the immediate right here, it's so bad, who cares about what's going on in the future? And unfortunately, many times, you, me, we are so consumed with here and now that we don't see what the future holds. And we don't believe that it's important or valuable. If God were to say, look, I have plans for you, plans to make you prosperous and successful, plans not to harm you, but for your good. But it's in the future. Can you wait for it? Can you look for it? Can you make decisions now that get you to that point? Or are you only going to make decisions that feel good to you emotionally or make sense only in this moment? Your future is too important for you to risk for the immediate. So here's the big deal. Esau was going to give up something important to his future. And the truth is, many times you would make those same decisions. You do those same things. Most of us get so consumed. You're willing to give up. You're willing to, because you want to succeed, because you want success, because you want to win, because you want acceptance, because you want to be envied by others, because you want recognition, you're willing to do things right now that you know are not good for you in hopes that you get those things because you don't want to think about the future. You don't believe that God's in the future, there in the future, wanting to give you good things. Your future is too risky for you to give up. Next part of the verse, in verse 33 says this, but Jacob said, first you must swear that your birthright is mine. So Esau swore an oath, thereby selling his rights as the firstborn to his brother Jacob. I almost wish I could go, oh, time out. I wish I could jump into their story and go, oh, time out. Esau, think about what you're doing. You're going to eat something, but you just sold so much of your life, so much of your future just to eat right now. Think about this for a second. In fact, here's what you got to think about. In the Bible, just one book over from Genesis is a book called Exodus, which is about God's people leaving Egypt of slavery. And we learn about we learn about a guy named Moses. And in a couple of weeks, you're going to hear about Moses. And when Moses doesn't know who God is, and God is talking to Moses, he says, here's who I am. I'm the God of your fathers. In Exodus 3, he says this, I'm the God of your fathers, your father Abraham, your father Isaac, and your father Esau. Somebody look up Exodus chapter 3, verse, I think it's 4 or 5 or 6. It's right there. He says, I'm the God of your father Abraham, your father Isaac, and your father Esau. Am I telling the truth? Who's looking at their Bible? Sorry. What did it say?
It says, I'm the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob.
Not Esau. Jacob, the younger brother, who got the birthright. In fact, if you go even further into the Bible, in Matthew chapter 1, we get to the New Testament. This is where we learn about Jesus coming to earth, the greatest thing that happens. And Jesus shows up, and we tell everybody about how he got to earth and whose families he's from. And it says he's from the lineage of Abraham, of Isaac, and of Jacob. Again, because Esau sold away his birthright, the favor, the portion, for a bowl of stew. And the question is, what are you giving up in your life, the future that God has for you, for whatever bowl of stew it is in your life? What are you giving up? And we see this this is the game changer. I mean, all of the future shifted because of what just happened there. And in fact, it even shifted in that moment. So we see that in the future, but we see it in the moment. In verse 34, here's what it says. Then Jacob gave Esau some bread and some lentil stew. Esau ate the meal, then got up and left. He showed contempt for his rights as the firstborn. So almost immediately after eating, he realizes, that was stupid. What I just did was dumb. I just gave up so much because I was hangry and I couldn't handle it. So in your life, what is it? What's that one picture, that one snap, that one conversation, that one relationship, that one party, that one disagreement with your parents, that one class, that one opportunity you took up part in and has the potential to ruin everything in the future that God has for you? This is how serious your decision making is. You're getting older. The decisions you're making now have the opportunity to affect the rest of your life. And I say that in all seriousness. You're one decision away from screwing up everything. And I hope you understand the seriousness of that thought. And because you think so immediate, you think so, you have to see these things. I wish you could come to my age, which is really old, or come to Steve's age, which is older than mine, and go, man, I wish I could look back and see the dumb things I did and how it's affected my present life. And go, man, I just wish I wouldn't have done those things. And you do them so quickly, you do them so flippantly, you do them so immediate because you don't think through them. They have the opportunity to mess everything up. It's serious business. Your future is too important to risk for the immediate because you're emotional, because you're hangry, because you're tired, because you want to be accepted, because you're put in the pressure moment. All eyes are on you. They ask for you to send that certain text to them, and you feel like you have to. They ask for you to say those certain things. They ask for you to go those certain places. And those moments have the opportunity to mess up a lot. And your future is too important to risk for the immediate. Now here's the truth. This is serious business. And it's big news. But there's even greater news. And the greatest news is that you're going to walk through a bunch of Old Testament stories about who all these characters or people in history were, but they all lead us to the most important, greatest story of all and of history, and that's Jesus himself. And the decisions you make today can last a lifetime, but the decision to follow Jesus, to trust his life, is an eternal one. And we serve a God who forgives way better than any human could ever forgive. We serve a God who gives grace way beyond that. Goes, you know what? I screwed up. I made a really bad decision. And thankfully, in God's grace, the outcome was not as bad as it could have been. And so while I want you to understand the seriousness you have of making decisions this day and age, I want you to understand, too, that you serve a God who loves you more than you ever could do, and that Jesus, the one who walked on this earth, who made the decisions, who lived his life in the thought process of the future is more important than the immediate. He knew the entire 30-something years he walked on this earth that the decision he was making was to die on a cross for you while you were still a sinner, while you were still sitting in that text, while you were still making that decision. While you were still going, you know what, I don't care about him, I don't love him, I don't believe him. He died even in those moments so that you could have life and have life to the fullest. And so I want you to understand the seriousness of your decision making, but I want you to understand more than that how awesome God is and how much he loves you. So what would happen? What would happen if you started making decisions that you actually thought about the future for a moment? How is this decision right now going to affect my future? Am I making wise decisions in the moment? Can I look at my past situations and go, you know what? That was really dumb for me to do back then. In this moment, I'm going to make a better decision. And I'll make a better decision in this moment because I care about what's going to happen in the future. How much greater could life be? I'll go ahead and give you a couple things. You may not be as cool with all the cool people in those moments. Guess what? Cool people fade away. I know you don't necessarily believe that in this moment because that's all you can see. It's the immediate. But all the cool people I knew in high school aren't cool anymore. They're just old people. You would never think they were cool. So it fades away. It goes away. But what if you became those students? You go, you know what? God has a great plan for my life. If God was continuing to write the Bible, he would say, I'm the God of Abraham, of Isaac, of Jacob, and of you. Because you made the right decisions. Because you lived the life God called you to live. How awesome would that be? God has a plan for your life that involves you, and he wants to do great things through you. One of my favorite verses, and if you've been here on Sundays when I've taught, I almost tell it every time I teach because I like the verse that much, is Ephesians 2, chapter 10, verse 10. And it says this, you are God's workmanship, his masterpiece, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, to make great decisions, to know that your future is more important than the immediate, and to do those good works. And those are all there because Christ Jesus created them for you, because he lived a life for you that you needed. So I hope you become God's masterpiece. I hope you walk in those great decisions. I hope you walk in those good works. Let's pray together and we'll be done. So God, we love you. We thank you for what you've done for us. We thank you for the goodness of Jesus. We learn from Jacob and Esau, but God, we know about Jesus because of what he's done for us. There are great moral things to learn from our stories in the Old Testament, but the truth is Jesus came, he lived, he died, he rose again, he's alive again, and we can have life when we put our trust and our life in his hands. So God, we thank you for that. We pray that if there are some decisions that have been made recently that we know have hurt us, God, we ask for forgiveness, we ask for grace, we ask for mercy, and we ask for grace and mercy in those moments when we know we're going to struggle in the future. So God, implant it in our hearts, put it in our brains to think about the thought that our future is too important to risk for the immediate things going on around us. God, we love you. We thank you for all that you've done for us. In your name we pray. Amen.